Diane.
That's a very brief question. The Association of, I cannot remember the name of the organization, I apologize. They are the people who grade our bridges and our roads and all of that for years. I worked with them while I was in DC for a while on construction grants and things like that. I was a researcher. And they graded an astronomical amount of our bridges, which is a public safety issue, it's an economic issue, as D and below. So do you not see fixing those roads and bridges as a current economic and public safety need that the government should then be stepping in on?
If there's a need to fix a bridge, you fix a bridge. You don't decide to wake up though and say, we need jobs, let's go build a bridge over there. This is a completely diverted. I mean, there's two distinct, different reasons why you would need infrastructure to be built. If you have a failing bridge, fix it. Yes, that's a public safety. See, this is the argument we get into, and this is where it's important where words matter and what people say and how the argument is constructed, because it's not the choice. Well, if you don't want stimulus spending towards these bridges and roads, you must want bridges to fall down and people to die. These are cartoonish arguments that you get into, and I'm not putting words in your mouth about you saying that people want people to die or anything like that. But think about the argument. Like, yes, obviously, if there's a problem with infrastructure, you fix it, but you don't say we're going to start randomly building things, government-sponsored, taking money out of the private sector, recycling it towards things that don't necessarily need to be done for that reason. And there's a sharp contrast there.
Just like to make one point, or actually two. First, I remember Bridge to Nowhere, but I don't think it was a Democrat who was pitching that idea. But to the point of deregulation, to be serious, the point about deregulation, I remember being a citizen in this country in 2007, and I remember not having enough regulation of Wall Street. And I think that's how we got into the position that we're in now, at least to a certain degree. So I think to say that deregulation will create jobs is not exactly true. We were losing 800,000 jobs every month because Wall Street was, placing bets that it didn't have the money to cash. So I think, to an extent, regulation can get in the way, but I think not having enough regulation means that your citizens aren't safe, they're not protected from pollution, they're not protected from, corporate greed. So I think there has to be a healthy balance there.
I'm sorry, I just have to correct one thing. You're right, sort of, because it was a Republican. Ted Stevens was the senator from Alaska. He was actually joined by a man named Tony Knowles, who was the governor of Alaska, who was a Democrat. So we can call it a match. It'll be a bipartisan.
Don't ruin my jokes.
I'm sorry.
That was a really good one-liner.
And it was a Republican governor of Alaska who put a stop to the Bridge to Nowhere. And I go ahead and say her name. Diane, say her name now. I don't remember her name, but I know it was a Republican.
And John mentioned something earlier. The policies is one thing you're going to hear probably tonight for the next few weeks. The policies that got us into this mess in the first place, all that deregulation. Right? Anybody know what those regulations are that we deregulated? Yeah, exactly. What happened was, the reason why the financial crisis happened was because...
So we don't have all night.
Okay.
So I've read 800-page books on this.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Well, I want to see in 60 seconds.
Yeah, I want to see you do it in 60 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. Back in the something called the Community Reinvestment Act. Google it. Basically, it mandated that banks give loans to people that would otherwise not get loans. That was the fundamental building blocks of why we had the subprime mess that we got into. Now, Wall Street played a part in it because what you had was all this cash from the loans drying up, and they had to create new derivative instruments to keep funneling and keep the housing bubble open. Wall Street did play a part, but it was by no means the deregulation of Wall Street that caused the financial crisis. It was the government policy mandating banks give loans to people who otherwise would not get them. Now, from there, you also have a problem with the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which separated commercial banks from investment banks, and that was signed into law by President Clinton.
You guys want to, I asked them first if you want the last word, or you do not have to.
No, I don't think that I'm as well versed in the economics, so I'm going to leave it to Jeff to explain that to the crowd. But I did want to go back. We spent a lot of time talking about President Obama's last 4 years, and I think the other thing I wanted to pose to our Republican counterparts, because I'm sure they're well versed in Governor Romney's policies. You said government taking money out of the economy is what's going to slow down, job growth. And I guess I would ask, during Governor Romney's administration here in Massachusetts, again, I don't have all the details, Jeff, so please don't ask me to cite anything. Even though I'm a researcher and like to cite things, this is not my profession. But it's been said that Governor Romney, during his time here, raised about $760 million in fees and taxes. I'm guessing most of those were fees because Republicans don't like taxes. So, I honestly just pose that to you two. If Republicans don't like taking money out of the private sector, why did Governor Romney do that to balance the budget in Massachusetts?
Well, we didn't elect Governor Romney as king. Maybe it's a little bit, we do have a heavily democratically controlled state legislature here in Massachusetts, and somebody once told me that they had a higher re-election rate than the Politburo in the old Soviet Union. So you can imagine how entrenched the Democrats were here, and usually the state legislature sets the budgets, but we did have a balanced budget under Governor Romney. And I'll close with this. There's one important thing that President Obama did say that was absolutely correct back in 2009. He said, during an economic downturn, the last thing you want to do is raise taxes. And he had control of the Senate, control of the House, and control of the White House. And he didn't raise taxes. So do not be fooled by this whole fair share notion, because he could have done anything he wanted to for those first 2 years. And he smartly didn't raise taxes. But now suddenly it's a complete reversal of his policy, and he wants to do that, I guess, presuming his next 4 years.
As a response, just